Hey, I'm Allison here, and welcome to Little Left of Center, the podcast that interviews culture changers that are reshaping our world and breaking new ground. Today's guest is Karen Jeffries, author of the smash hit book Hilariously Infertile, One Woman's Inappropriate Quest to Help Women Laugh Through Infertility. This is a topic close to my heart. I did IVF to get my 4-year-old daughter, Juliana, and the truth is, when there is medical intervention when trying to conceive, there is just no straight line to baby. Nobody goes on Facebook and says, hey, I can't get knocked up. Anybody know anyone? There's a lot of secrecy, shame, and really isolation when you're going through it. And one day I was watching headline news, and there was a segment interviewing this school teacher named Karen Jeffries and how her book and Instagram account just grew like wildfire. So I was furiously DMing her to see if she'd be open to an interview. And luckily, well, here we are. Now, I do have to do a little bit of a disclaimer about the interview that the first minute or so is cut off, so I apologize for that. However, we get right into the meat of things, and I think the most important part to know, especially if you know somebody who's struggling with infertility or you are experiencing it or have experienced it, that you are not alone. And by the way, Karen is really funny, so please enjoy.
And when you're going through it, it's just like this drudge that you're just like trudging through. And everyone calls it like a journey. They'll be like, oh, it's my infertility journey. And sometimes I find myself saying that word and I actually don't like saying it because I'm like, it's not a journey. Like a journey is like eat, pray, love, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a journey, right? Like climbing the Appalachian Mountains or something. That's the journey. But like infertility is not a journey. Like it sucks. It's a trek, right? So it is hard to find funny things about it. But when I started writing the book, I realized like, oh my goodness, this is funny. Like this is funny, and this is the way that real women talk to each other. And whether it's about discharge or vaginal wands or my husband having to go give his what they call donation.
Yes.
What? Like all that stuff. I was like, this is actually really funny, And so that's when I realized that, like, I can make some parts of it funny to help people through the really, really bad times.
So are you funny in general? Are you, like you're a school teacher and now you're doing stand-up comedy with this.
I know.
Tell me about, this is truly a journey. So tell me about how did this come about? Yes.
That part for sure is a journey. So I wrote the book about 3.5 years ago when I was on maternity leave with my second daughter. And my husband was the one who suggested that I write it. And it took me like 5 weeks to write. Like it took no time at all. And then I tried to like get it published. Like I like sent it to like New York publishers, and they all said, because I didn't know, because I'm a school teacher, so I didn't know that you have to like be famous to get a book published with like a real place.
Right.
And they all said, we just don't think it's a big enough market. And so that's what to me like kept me going like through the years. And then one of my husband's friends was like, you need to get a website and you need to get on social media. And I was like, but I hate social media. Like I didn't even have a personal Facebook account. Like I had nothing.
That is insane.
Because my students they're fourth graders, so like they Google you. Like they'll come in, they're like, we Googled you last night, and I'm like, oh, what did you find? And it's like my wedding website from like 10 years ago or something silly like that, And so, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I hate social media. And he was like, trust me, like if you want to help people, this is what you have to do. And so I took his advice. I started a website. I started the social media. And like little by little, it just started growing and growing and growing. And I was like, oh my goodness, like people are really responding to this. And I had like posted a few chapters of my book on my website. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then finally, around springtime last year, I was like, okay, like now I need to self-publish the book because the platform is big enough. And really my followers were like, we have to read the rest of this book. Like it was getting to the point where they were like, they wanted it, So I was like, okay. So I went forward with self-publishing, and I was just hoping that I would because it costs a lot of money to self-publish, like it's out of my pocket. So like I was just hoping that we would just break even, I was like, if I can sell this many books, then I will break even, and then my husband won't kill me for spending this much money on self-publishing, right? or like, you know, it's like self-published or like go nuts at the mall. So I was like, we're going to go self-published.
Right.
And it has just completely far surpassed my wildest dreams. Like, I never thought that it would sell as much as it has. I never thought that people would be, you know, DMing me, messaging me, emailing me from all parts of the earth and basically being like, I found your book, I'm reading it in this language, or not in this language, but like I speak this language and I'm reading your book, or I'm, you know, from here and I'm reading your book, or blah, blah, blah. I had like a 90-some-odd-year-old, like well into her 90-year-old like grandmother be like, I read your book and I loved it. And like she read it for her granddaughter. And it was just like things like that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's just been crazy. So then
it's freaking hilarious though. Like I feel like I was reading through it and I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to a friend. Like it feels very natural. It sounds funny. Like, oh, that is kind of funny, you know? And it's got such a personal way. And I'm curious to see, you know, from a social media perspective, I mean, there are groups that I wish I knew about, like Resolve. Resolve is a big group for infertility. It's a community. I had no idea that was even there. I was just asking, like, do you know anybody who did IVF? And people are like, no, or yeah, my neighbor did, and they have 12 kids, you know, like they had 6 tuplets. And it's like, well, okay, I need some real things. And I'm curious to see about, are you familiar with Pregnant-ish, Andrea?
Yes.
I think she's also in New York as well. And she takes an approach of, she's very sensitive to, you know, like this, because now Andrea from Pregnant-ish tried for like, I think like 17 tries of IVF and could not get pregnant and ended up having a daughter through a surrogate. Mm-hmm. And as she had her baby, and you kind of see this miracle kind of unfold after all of this time and expense, she would take the approach of, you know, I want to post and I want to be very sensitive to people who have not had a baby. You know, this can be triggering. You might want to move on. That, you know, I am happy. And I wonder, you know, how do you draw the line? Like, you drop F-bombs. I mean, you're hilarious, you know, in your post, and they're very funny and kind of, you know, out there. And they really, like, for me, I totally get it. And I was like, wow, I wish I knew about you before. How do you get blowback from people that are saying, you know, that's insensitive, or, you know, what do you see? Like, how do people respond to you?
So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And Andrea and I are actually pretty good friends. We like had to run through the Denver airport together, like at a mad sprint a year ago, but coming back from an infertility conference. But I have gotten some blowback, not a lot. And part of me is kind of just like, listen, this is my, like, it's hard to manage a little bit because, like, it's my social media, but it's really for Hilariously Infertile. But I always say that it's not about me, because it's not. I'm not currently going through infertility. So when I post things about, you know, who gets to have, you know, progesterone suppositories shot up inside them today, like, I'm not actually speaking about myself, you know? Right. Yeah, I'm not actually speaking about myself. I'm speaking about what I went through, because I didn't have this when I was going through infertility. Like, I wasn't on social media. I didn't know about Resolve. I had 2 coworkers that I knew that I worked with who had gone through IVF, and that's it. Like, that's all I had. And I was just like on an island with me and my husband, and that was it. And I didn't even really Google that much. But so the blowback that I have received has been mostly from, like, there's one like e-card or a meme that I in the beginning I posted a few times and I didn't get any blowback whatsoever. And then once my platform got really, really big and I posted it, I got some pushback. It was like something about how, like, oh great, another, like, and forgive me for saying this, but like another crack whore is pregnant, and like I still can't get pregnant. And like, it's not saying anything negative necessarily about that type of a situation. Yeah. It's just saying, like, that's how you feel. Like, and it could be like the Virgin Mary could be pregnant again. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it could be like the nicest person. You could be like like everyone loves Reese Witherspoon or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, she could get pregnant and we'd all be like, man, you know? So it's not really up against that person in my mind. It's more like for like the for people who are going through infertility. But I think that, and I understood, like, I was very respectful, and I was like, I understand that this offends people, and so I ended up taking down those posts. The only other time that I had some blowback was, there's a big, like, a lot of people go back and forth in the comments on my social media about, like, the difference between infertility and secondary infertility, or the difference between, like, me, who I consider, like, I'm infertile, like, I can't get pregnant on my own. If I were to try to get pregnant tomorrow, it wouldn't be able to happen without doctors. And then people who are, like, who have gone through infertility, exhausted all their options, and are childless. And there's a spectrum, and people fight over it a lot, like in my comments. And there are times where I've had to get on the stories or go into the comments, and I don't really like try to go back and forth with people, but I'm like, guys, like, this is a place where people should feel safe and welcomed, and like, we can agree to disagree. Like, yes, do I still consider myself infertile? Yes. Am I as infertile as someone who tragically has had like 7 miscarriages and 8 failed IVF cycles and now like is done, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, no, like, I am not that infertile. I was able to get pregnant eventually, and I was able to carry 2 children to term, you know what I mean? So like, there's a spectrum, and I think that what's important is that everyone kind of respects that, and like, wherever you are on that spectrum, it doesn't mean that like you're like my sister, she's like fertile as a horse. Like, I don't even know. Like, she looks at her husband and gets pregnant. So like, she would not be on the spectrum of infertility, you know? So like, I don't feel like it's a competition, you know, as who's more infertile. But there have been people that have definitely gone through a lot worse, and that's not lost on me at all. So I think that there's a little bit of blowback with that too.
Yeah, and I think that kind of brings up a good point, that people can say very insensitive things. They can say things like, well, you know, why are you complaining? You already have a kid, you know, or they might say, you know, why don't you just adopt? And I'm wondering, you know, it is such a sensitive place. And I think part of, you know, like Little Left of Center, my podcast is about culture changes. And I think, you know, kind of bringing infertility out into the open is really, really important, so people feel like they are not so alone, you know? And what I learned from my experience, and by the way, I noticed you have a uterus on your shirt with 2 middle fingers. I like that. That's hilarious. You can buy these actually on my website. Oh, great. Yeah. Selling merch. I love it. Yeah. You know, but what I realized is that, you know, when doctors are involved, there is no straight line to baby. And so every single appointment is new information and a new direction. And it is, you know, like on top of the hormones, it's really hard to navigate. And so I'm wondering, you know, through your experience, through your exposure to so many people, that you've kind of hit almost like a zeitgeist when, you know, your publisher said it's not a big enough market, and you have these people that are craving some kind of understanding, some kind of connection, some kind of feeling that they're not alone, and as well as the hope. What are some good things that people can say? What are some comforting things? Because people just don't like to be uncomfortable, so they say dumb shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people do say really, really, really dumb stuff. I think that at least for me, I think the biggest thing that people could say is like, I'm here for you. Like, how can I help you? Or, you know, I'll come over and I'll just listen. You know, I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to try to fix you. I'm not going to tell you that this is like push my religious beliefs on you or anything. Like, I'm just going to listen to you. And if you need to cry and vent for 45 minutes, I will be here just to listen to you. So I think like having people feel like they've been heard is huge. I also think that, you know, I've helped a lot of people, my friends, through infertility after going through it. And there have been times where I've been like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do? Like, I can't be at home with you every single night, maybe, you know, giving you injections, and I can't do this, but like, do you want me to take your kids out if if they have kids, or do you want me to make you some food, or do you want me to, you know, do you want to go get your nails done? Like, what can I do to help you? And like, if it's a coworker, I've been like, you know, let me take your kids for the last period, and I'll do something in my classroom with your students and my students and let you be, you know, or whenever you're coming in late, like, I'll make sure that like I grab your kids, you know, your students or something like that. So I think little things like that, as opposed to being like, it'll work out. Cause like I've said it many times on my platform, like, don't like, telling people it will work out isn't helpful.
Oh, it
like,
isn't. You got this. You got this.
I'm like, you
Girl, you don't know
that. So don't say that. And it could not work out. And like, I tell my followers all the time, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, it will work out. Cause like, I don't know that to be true. But what I do know is that, and what I've learned a lot from Hilariously Infertile and just being a grown up and going through motherhood and teaching and balancing Hilariously Infertile is that I really strongly believe that like women are like ridiculously powerful and ridiculously strong. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, everything's going to work out. But what I can say is that you are stronger than this. Like, you are stronger than this. You are like a force to be reckoned with. And if you kind of could harness that you'll realize that like you can do anything. And it really, like, infertility is not going to stop you or do anything to you, because like women are so much stronger than that, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. I love that advice too. I think even just the comfort of, how can I be here for you? You know, whatever you need, I'm here to listen. I think that's really powerful and empowering. And you know, you're a fourth grade teacher, and now you have this book and you have this social media and you're doing stand-up comedy. What is your mission?
It's crazy, right?
I love
it. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so the comedy thing happened, like, I don't really know how that actually really happened. So I started doing this speech, which is basically just like an abridged version of me explaining my book, almost like paraphrasing my book, and it's about an hour long, and I started doing it for fertility clinics, for their doctors and their staff and practitioners, because what people don't think about is like how hard their job is also, right? Like, their job is really, really hard. They're dealing with people who are upset and sad and traumatized, and they're like, so like I started doing it for them and for people in the medical field. And then I was like, you know what, how about we do like a comedy night in New York City, and we'll donate ticket proceeds to charity, which is, the first one was to Baby Quest Foundation, which is a foundation in the United States that helps people with financial assistance who are going through infertility, specifically to people in the United States. And so it was a huge hit, and it was sold out, and it was super fun. And it was just me up there talking for an hour, which like doesn't really scare me because I'm up in front of my class every single day of my life, you know?
My God,
so
you weren't
in English
nervous?
and in Spanish. So it doesn't really matter to me. And then I was like, okay. And then people were like, oh my God, I have to see more. Can you come to this city? Can you come to this city? I wish you could come to this city. And I was like, should I start going to other cities? Like, okay, like I have family in Boston. So like, it's very grassroots. Like people are like, you should come to my city. And I'm like, oh, well, I do have family in Boston, so maybe I can go to Boston. And like, my sister lives in Chicago, so maybe after Boston, we'll go to Chicago. So like, I could just stay on their couches and then do a comedy show. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, but I'm really happy that people are coming out. And my biggest mission in terms of that is just to get people laughing and to get people to feel that, like, that sensation of like, you're not alone. Like you're going to be in a theater. I mean, the one in Boston is over 400 people. Like you're going to be surrounded by hundreds of people who have been in your exact situation or a very similar situation and know exactly what you're going through. And it's just that feeling of like, wow, I'm really not alone. You know, I'm really not in this alone. And I think that's huge. And the proceeds are going to charity, which is like, it's like a win for everyone. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like there is some type of responsibility or some type of contribution that you can make to help with laws or even some of the benefits and benefit packages that include IVF, that include support for infertility? What is your role in that?
So, okay, so in terms of like legal advocacy and in terms of like states' rights and insurance and stuff like that, I am not as huge as an advocate in that aspect as like a lot of my other social media friends, and I can list off the name of who they are, and they're amazing. They work specifically with Resolve, like National Resolve. The proceeds of the Boston show are going to be going to Baby Quest again, and also Resolve New England, which also does lobbying and stuff with legislation. I've done some posts, you know, for Resolve and been like, hey, this is huge. Call your you know, your congressman, call your senators, things like that. But I try to stay on message for Hilariously Infertile, which is not so much about legislation as it is about like the patients who are going through it. However, the stuff that Resolve is doing in advocacy to get insurance companies, they just passed a law in New York State that insurance companies in New York State must like require infertility coverage for all their insurers. And I think that's
awesome.
Huge. And without them, like so many people would not have coverage. And I mean, I had coverage. I have amazing coverage through teaching in the public school system, but so many people, they end up having to stop their fertility treatments simply because they can't afford it. And to me, that should never be a factor. So the people who I know that are great in advocating for legislation, specifically for infertility legislation, are Jay Palumbo of the 2 Week Wait. She's amazing. Also, Our Misconception, which is Candace Wold, is also incredible. Andrea from Pregnant-ish is amazing. They all do a lot of infertility legislation advocacy work, and they all work with Resolve. And there's a couple more in there that I'm sure I'm forgetting, and I hope I don't offend anyone by forgetting them, but those are the 3 big ones that I know personally that I know are really standing up and taking a stand and going to DC, lobbying, really being in it. And I highly respect them. And I feel bad because there are so many times they're like, oh, well, we missed you in DC. And I'm like, I know, I was teaching. It's on a Wednesday. I can't just go down to DC.
Right.
On, you know what I mean?
Changing these kids' lives
on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to balance that. And if I, so that I do struggle with, but they're great, and I support them and all their advocacy work, 100%.
And I don't know if we ever answer the question of, are you naturally funny? Did this just come out of nowhere?
I mean, I think if you were to ask my mother, she would say yes. But I don't consider myself a stand-up comedian. I'm just a regular funny person. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of a goofball, and I just kind of, that's just parlayed nicely into Hilariously Infertile. But in my classroom with my students, they would say that I'm funny. We're constantly joking around in whatever language and whatever subject also.
It's funny because I was trying to, put myself in your shoes, as I was reading your book and you were talking about your husband and being a donation center for him to, ejaculate in a cup, and you being a human pincushion for injections and all of that. And I wondered if you laughing at that was kind of like when my mom, when I was younger, would be so angry and I would just start laughing at her, because I didn't know, I didn't know what else to do, even though it would infuriate her even more. But it was that nervous thing. And I wonder if that's the same thing, and have you been able to teach people where, or even give them permission to laugh? So I wonder what the response has been like. I bet you've heard amazing stories and have had been able to help people on their journey.
On their journey.
Yes.
I mean, I think that a lot of the laughter and the comedy also comes from the dynamic between my husband and I. We're both really silly together, and I think that helped us definitely through infertility. We were in my fertility doctor's office, and he said, the lab on site, that your husband will come in and give his donation, which I was like, what? And then he said the lab on site will clean and buff his sperm. And I remember being what? I was like, what is he talking about? I don't even understand. And I immediately pictured little Oompa Loompas, cleaning each sperm. And my husband did too. We had this moment and we walked out and I'm like, what? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, So I think that that's huge, just giving you the ability to laugh. And the feedback that I've received from people is that, I've received emails and these things that just bring tears to my eyes, where they're all I did was cry. All I did was cry myself to sleep every single night. And then I found your book and I read it in one sitting, which I'm like, okay, book's maybe not that long. But they're I read it in one sitting and now I'm laughing. Now I'm crying because I'm laughing so hard. I've had people send me the most amazing messages about how after a late-term miscarriage or even an earlier miscarriage that they couldn't laugh, they couldn't find their smile, a husband and a wife, and they couldn't find their smile and they couldn't get through it, and then they found my content or they found my book, and it was the first time that they but they both laughed and they both smiled. I also had this one woman like reach out to me who said how her and her best friend got pregnant at the same time, and then she miscarried. Her friend went on to carry to term, and then she started going through, infertility treatments and IVF, and it was just taking so long. And actually kind of that like difference in paths kind of drew a wedge in between them. And she's like, but then we found your content, and my girlfriend would just like every now and then like text me something that you posted, and she's like, and then we brought this, and she's like, I can't even tell you, she's like, this friend of mine, she's like, we weren't just friends, we were really sisters. And she's like, and we were separating and we were going different ways, and like that, like my content and my book and stuff brought them back together, which I was like, oh my god, like, I was like, I can't believe it, because like never did I ever, like never when I was sitting there on my couch like writing up like just like funny dick and vagina jokes in this whatever this Word document was going to be, I had no idea. Like never did I imagine that like it would bring people together that had drifted apart, or they would help grieving couples. You know what I mean? Like it was just like it's very humbling. It's very and it's a lot sometimes to handle, because I'm like, oh my gosh, but it makes me really, really happy that I can create something that's having an effect on people, and that's really helping people. So yeah.
Do you have like a private community for those people to connect with each other? Or is it just the social media?
Yeah, just the social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
So I wish I had it. I'm like, I wish I followed a funny person that had ovaries flipping the bird on her shirt all the time when I was going through it, but I didn't.
Did you like take a class on social media, or like how did you figure it out? Or was it like crickets at first, or it just kind of took off? You just hit a nerve?
So I didn't even know like what a hashtag was. Like I knew nothing. Like I knew nothing. And then I asked my niece, she was 19 at the time, and I was like, can you help me? And she like kind of showed me like what a hashtag was, and and she helped me through like doing like that stuff. And then for a while there, her and I were both posting at the same time, because like I was working, so she would post once a day or I would post once a day, and then we would kind of go back and forth. And now she's moved on because she has a full-time job now, but so now it's just all of me. But she did help me navigate it at first, because I was like, what's the hashtag? Like, what's the at? Like, I didn't understand, like, any of it. And she'd be like, Karen, you have to do this. And she'd be like, Karen, you have to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, just taking advice from her, because I was like, she's a millennial. And then my husband one time came home, and I remember, like, the first, like, couple of weeks, I was like, well, our niece brought my followers from, like, 30 to 130 in, like, a few days. And he's like, what? How'd you do that? I was like, I don't know. I think she like sprinkled like millennial dust on it or something. And it turned out it's because like you have to use hashtags, So and then it just grew and grew and grew, and I've grown since then.
So how do you navigate it, being a mom, being a full-time teacher, an author? How do you navigate all of it?
It's a lot. It's definitely really hard, especially in September. Like from September until December, I feel like it's just like so hard. Like it's just going until like Christmas, and then I'll probably get a sinus infection like after Christmas.
Right.
But I mean, I wake up at 5:40 in the morning. I leave my house at 7. I get to work by 7:30. I teach all day until 3:20, and then I stay after school a little bit to like correct papers until 4:30. Sometimes I come home earlier depending on how busy I am at work. I like to get home at like 3:45, but in September it's more like 4:15, 4:30. And then I have like 3 completely blocked off, 3 to 4, like, when I'm not that busy at school, I can be home at 3:45. That's my goal. Like 3 to 4 hours that are completely blocked off, that are just me and my girls, doing homework and playing outside and doing all that stuff, and bath and bed. And then I close my older daughter's door at 7:30, and I come downstairs and I go back to work for Hilariously Infertile until 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And that's been my schedule. Like that's pretty much every single day. And I'm happy to do it. Like I'm not complaining. I'm not, it's amazing. And I wouldn't change anything for the world.
You're making such a difference with this too. Like you're changing the culture, which absolutely needs to be changed. And I'm wondering, is there a path for this? I mean, do you have aspirations of leaving teaching or doing something with this and, you know, or evolving into something else? What's next?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I hope I'm changing the culture. I think that's part of it because, like, when in the beginning I was like, why doesn't anyone talk about this? Like, when I went to the fertility clinic that first day of my first ultrasound morning monitoring, I remember thinking that I was going to like meet people in the waiting room and like make friends with them. And like, that's what I thought. And I was like, it's going to be great. I'm going to make friends and like, I'll know people that are going through what I'm going through. And then I got there and I realized that like no one talks and it's like a funeral home. And I was like, oh my God, you know? So I do really hope I am changing the culture because I never really, I mean, I'm obviously very, very open and I'm an open book, almost to a fault sometimes, but I never really understood why we didn't talk about it. So I am happy to be part of changing that because I say to my friends all the time, I'm like, any other doctor's appointment you talk about. You know what I mean? Like you go to the dentist, you talk about it. Like you go to here, you talk about it. Like you have to go to whatever, you know what I mean? Like you have a checkup. Oh, how's your cholesterol? Like you talk about it. But for some reason, no one talks about infertility. And I don't really understand why. So, and in terms of parlaying this into something in the future, it's really, really hard for me because like, I feel like I am a teacher, not just like that's just my job or what I do, but I feel like inside of me, like that's who I am. So leaving teaching, if I were to leave teaching, would be a huge, huge, huge jump for me. Also, it would be something my husband and I would have to consider because it would involve going off of my health insurance, which is amazing, and things like that, you know, are my benefits and also my pension. So there are some financial things that I need to consider before doing that to see if I were to get my ducks in a row. However, I have thought about maybe taking a sabbatical from teaching and just doing this full time and seeing where it takes me, because what I've realized is, you know, much with anything in life, what you put into it is what you get out of it. So oftentimes during the summers, I might have more time to answer emails or to call people or to get back to people, and because I'm not teaching, and then it hits fall and I'm like, and then like things kind of, I kind of pump the brakes a little bit because I just can't. And so, so I would like to really just delve in and just be like, where can we take this? Also, because right now, I mean, I'm 37 years old. Like, no one's going to want to hear about me talk about infertility when I'm like 50 years old. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait until
It's
like
a fair
I'm
question.
retired, from teaching to really see if this goes anywhere. So I would be interested in maybe taking a sabbatical, or maybe seeing where this goes, or maybe opening it up to other options, you know, other ideas, like, you know, whether it's parenting or motherhood or just like being like a mature older
Hilariously
person.
parenting.
Yeah, you know,
Hilariously
or
momming.
just like talking about like the other day, yesterday, I was being interviewed about intimacy after having kids, and the person was like, wow, that's a great like way that I was thinking about it. And I was like, maybe I'm the next like Dr. Ruth. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, I'm not, obviously I'm joking, but I think that there are a lot of different avenues that I could take this platform, or like grow different platforms off of it while still maintaining Hilariously Infertile for the followers out there and for the patients who are still going through it, and maintaining that, like, what it really is. Because I don't want to change that too much. I would maybe do some offshoots, but I would still always want Hilariously Infertile to be dedicated to people who are going through infertility and getting them to just maybe crack a smile or crack a laugh.
Oh, I love that. What was the response like after the headline news thing? Did they call you, or how did they find you, and what was the response like?
So I have a publicist that I hired in the spring, and he actually was who connected me to Headline News, and the response has been amazing. I mean, people are just happy that it's out there, that you know, that I'm talking about it, and then, like, you know, my mom was like, I can't believe my daughter's on TV, and I was like, Mom, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's been really positive, which is great, because I think that people are starting to realize that, like, that this is, well, not maybe starting to realize, but people see that, like, this is kind of like my passion project, and that I really just am trying to help people. So
I love that. Yeah. And I think it's so important too. And I think, what people underestimate is that art, and very often art changes culture, and a lot of times art is comedy because it's kind of a level playing field. That if you can make somebody laugh, that's how people really realize that that you can change culture. So I'm curious to, how can people contribute to your mission?
Ooh, I think that's a good question. I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. I love that. I think that people can contribute to my mission by just not being so like in the closet about their infertility, for lack of a better saying. I think that, when you sit at let's say Thanksgiving dinner table, or any dinner table, and people like ask you questions, and you don't just come out and be like, listen, I'm infertile, I'm going through it. Like when your aunt, whoever, is like, so when are you two gonna have kids? And you're like, when you're like, and you don't say anything, and you chug a glass of wine, and then go into the closet or go into the bathroom and like cry and look at yourself in the mirror, which we've all done. Like everyone that I know has done that to one extent or another. Like when you don't say, you know what, I'm actually struggling right now and I'm going through infertility, or you don't say, maybe that's not the best thing to ask because we can't get pregnant, or we just suffered a miscarriage, or whatever your case may be. I think when you squash it, that just perpetuates this no one talks about it stigma. And so I think just getting out there and just talking about it. I mean, so many people DM me and they're like, how do I ward off those obnoxious comments? And I'm like, tell them you're infertile. I mean, I have this really bad thing where I don't drink coffee. I drink Diet Coke in the morning. And when I was I know it's so bad. It's so bad for you. I'm either going to like die at like 60 or be alive until I'm 150 because of preservatives. I don't know. But, teaching in a school with all women, people would notice when I wasn't drinking my Diet Coke first thing in the morning and I wasn't walking into the building with it. And so much so that people would be like, so-and-so thinks you're pregnant because you're not drinking your Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, and I just flat out was like, no, actually, I'm going through infertility treatments. I'm trying really hard to like not be drinking that while I'm going through infertility treatments because like, it's frowned upon or whatever, and it would either shut them up completely, and like they learned their lesson, or they'd be like, oh my gosh, I went through that, or oh my gosh, my sister's going through the same thing. And so it would either spark a conversation and bring me and that other person closer together, or it would teach them a lesson. So either one, I feel like it's a win-win.
Yes.
But being upset and offended is a correct and completely justified response, but it's not then changing the culture, like you say, or changing the dynamic or changing the conversation. And I mean, I hate to say like as a teacher, but it is kind of a teachable moment, to be like, listen, I'm going through infertility and that's why I'm drinking this. And then they're like, oh, like maybe I should mind my P's and Q's and maybe I shouldn't be asking people that, or we'll bring people closer together. So I think that's my biggest thing.
And that is kind of an interesting concept, because why are we so interested in the gotcha? Like, are you pregnant? And they say yes. You're like, I knew it. Why are we so interested in that anyway?
I know. I mean, I find myself doing that too. Like even like last year, like one of my very close coworkers was pregnant, and I knew she was pregnant for like a long time, and I just waited until she finally said that she was pregnant, and I was like, yeah, no, I've known since 3 months ago or whatever, but like I wasn't ever gonna like out her or anything, and I was just so excited for her. And I think it's it's one of those things that as women that you want to almost not be part of, but like feel connected to other women, because it's something that like only some women have gone through pregnancy. Like there's not everyone on the planet can relate to it, and so whether it's men who can't relate to it or women who have never gone through it can't relate to it. So I feel like it's that like, oh, like we have something in common that now we can both relate to and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I do the same thing, but I always like, I'm like, okay, just let her tell us when it's her time. and eventually she did, but yeah.
I so wish I knew about you when I was going through my own fertility. I wish I knew about all of this, pregnant-ish, resolve. I had no idea. I was just in the closet. And luckily it worked, but But it was a very tough struggle that I was not prepared for, you know? And I'm wondering, how can people find you? What's the best way? Aside from this funny book, Hilariously Infertile, on Amazon.
On Amazon. They can go to Instagram, and if you type in Hilariously, and I mean, you might have to go as far as saying infertile, but it will come up and you'll see it. So they can follow
you're
me
verified.
What'd you say?
You got the check mark.
I know, I have the check mark, which is so ridiculously crazy too. But yeah, or I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I have to say that personally, I am personally on Instagram the most. I don't check that often Facebook or Twitter. I'll post to Twitter, and with Facebook, if you post to Instagram, it just goes over to Facebook. So I find myself that I'm not on Facebook that often. So if you message me or DM me, and if you want to do it, I would prefer that, or you might get a better chance of getting a response if it's through Instagram. But people can also email me. My email's on all my social media, or you can go through the website, which is hilariouslyinfertile.com, and there's merchandise. And if you don't know if you want to buy the book or not, there are some chapters on my website, and then if you like it, then it's like longer than what would be an Amazon preview.
It
is
so
the book.
Funny, and it's an easy read too. So I think you should get it.
Not I know it's not like the deepest book ever. And someone said something one time, and I was like, I know it's not like the most amount of pages. And they're like, no, but it's good. I'm like, I mean, I can make infertility funny, but it's not like War and Peace funny. Like it's not gonna be like 400 pages. It's just not. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. This was such a pleasure, and I'm so glad that you're doing this. You're making a difference. You are changing the culture. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Man, I wish I knew about Hilariously Infertile when I was trying to get pregnant. It's not an easy road, but I'm sure glad that there's an entire community that gets you and is there to support you and maybe laugh. Make sure you share this episode with anyone who might be struggling with infertility. It will help. I've linked Karen's info in the show notes. As for Little Left of Center, in addition to streaming on your favorite podcast app, these episodes are also broadcasting on Decatur FM and Salesforce Radio. If you haven't hit subscribe yet, please make sure you do so you never miss an episode of these perspective-shifting episodes. Oh, and have you left a 5-star review yet? I would love to hear your feedback. I'm also looking for sponsors for future episodes, so feel free to follow me on the socials and hit me up. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.